She told me I was her anchor, then quietly admitted she'd been seeing someone else behind my back. So I packed my things, walked out without raising my voice, and cut every tie we shared. Weeks later, when her new guy dropped her the same way she did me, she came back saying, "He used me." I didn't realize what I had. I held her hand because it felt like the last ordinary thing between us. It was late October, and I was 28. We had been together for 4 years, long enough to know the rhythms of each other's days. That night she took a breath and said, "You're my anchor, but I want to drift." Her voice was calm. For a while, I believed her. She left her phone face up on the table. She said she was meeting friends more often, taking walks, and thinking about things she couldn't explain. I trusted her words. The pattern changed. Missed texts she blamed on battery, a late drive she called air, and small slips that became familiar. She would come home with a faint, unfamiliar scent on her coat. I tried to be patient. Then I found a receipt stuck in a magazine. A coffee shop I didn't know. 2 names on the back, written in a looping hand. I held that paper and felt the room contract. I did not confront her immediately. I wanted to see where the trail led. I started keeping notes. I watched when she left, which streets she walked, and when her tone shifted. I did not tell anyone. Over weeks, the evidence stacked. Messages that appeared and disappeared. A photo she claimed was solo that showed someone else in the background. Little things that, together, made a map. One night, I set the receipt on the table and waited. She unfolded it. "Oh, that," she said, and tried to push it away. The laugh in her voice was quick and hollow. She told me about meeting someone at a class, a man who liked the same music, who asked the right questions. She called it a drift, a set of choices she couldn't always explain. She said she hadn't meant to hurt me and admitted she had been seeing him. I felt a steady emptiness. Confirmation arrived like a clean cut. I realized I had been the safe place she returned to when things got messy. She was honest in an uncomfortable way. I could see where care ended and convenience began. I left without drama. I thought about what staying would mean, for my sense of self, and for what I would allow. Over the next days, I moved quietly, taking stock of shared accounts, keys, and photos. I did not act out of spite. I acted with purpose. Revenge is often loud and public. I wanted something quieter that fit how she had unmoored herself. I planned small, exact moves to show that comfort isn't a resource to draw from and discard. I would protect what was mine and let consequences follow. I am not violent. I am not cruel for the sake of it. I am precise. For now, I'm packing a box of memories, listing what gets returned and what stays. I will make choices that do not feel like surrender. I plan modest, controlled steps. Close the shared credit card, change passwords, remove photos from frames, and put them in a box. I wanted to be fair but firm, not to humiliate, but to make clear that being a backup is a choice with costs. I thought about telling her friends what had been happening, but decided actions were sharper than words. I would rebuild a routine for myself that did not hinge on her returns when things got rough. I would hold myself steady and let consequences follow. I didn't speak to her for 2 days after I left the house. Not out of anger, but to give myself room to think. My name is Lucas. That's enough for now. I stayed in a small rental across town where the walls were thin and the place smelled faintly of old wood. It wasn't home, but it was quiet. During those 2 days, she sent a long message saying she didn't want things to end like this, and that she hoped I would come back so we could talk like adults. I didn't answer. I knew where that conversation usually led. She'd try to soften the story, pull at old memories, and make the truth seem smaller than it was. Instead, I focused on clean steps, not emotional spirals. I went through the shared accounts one by one. I removed my name from the ones she used alone and kept the ones I paid for. I notified the bank about my plans to close the joint savings. I kept everything legal and predictable. Nothing dramatic. Just choices she would eventually feel. Late that evening, she called. I let it ring. Then she sent a short message. "I think I deserve a conversation." I stared at that message for a long moment. I remember thinking how odd it was. The person who chose a different path now wanted me to help her navigate the ending too. Instead of replying, I called her sister, someone who had always been kind to me. I told her what happened in a careful, simple way. No blame, no dramatic details. Just facts. She was quiet on the phone, said she wished she had known earlier, and told me to take care of myself. I kept that call brief. Later, I heard from a mutual friend who said she had been asking around, acting confused about why I overreacted. She said she had made a mistake, but not something relationship ending. I let the friend talk, but I didn't argue. There was nothing left to debate. I had the truth in front of me. After that, I sent her a final clear message. "I won't come back. I'll return the rest of your things next week. Leave my belongings at your door." She didn't answer for 6 hours. When she did, it was a short line. "If this is what you want, fine." That tone, flat and dismissive, gave me clarity. I saved the message and put the phone down. A couple of days later, I returned to the house only to pick up what I'd left. She wasn't there. Her car was gone. Her neighbor saw me and nodded in a way that made me wonder what she had told people. Inside, the place looked the same from a distance, but different up close. She had packed some of my smaller things in a cardboard box, but left others scattered, like she didn't know what mattered to me and what didn't. I collected what was mine, checked drawers, unplugged my own equipment, and left my key on the counter. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine, not even by accident. Before leaving, I took out a thick envelope I had prepared. It held printouts, screenshots, receipts, dates, and notes, everything confirming what she had admitted. I placed it on the table with a short line on top. This is why. Nothing more needs to be said. Then I walked out and locked the door from the inside one last time. On my drive back to the rental, I felt a plain, steady calm. Not relief, just room to breathe again. The morning after I left the envelope on her table, I expected a storm of messages. Instead, there was silence. A full day went by with nothing from her. No calls, no long paragraphs, not even an angry line. That silence told me more than any explanation she could have offered. She was processing the reality she had avoided for weeks. I kept myself busy. I walked more, cooked simple meals, cleaned the rental kitchen even though it barely needed it. Normal things that felt like steps back into my own life. On the third evening, my phone finally lit up. The first message. So you're just walking away? Then another. You didn't even try. That last line sat on my screen for a long minute. She had been drifting towards someone else for months, and yet she claimed I hadn't tried. I didn't reply. I didn't defend myself. I knew any answer would only feed the argument she wanted to start. But I did take note of something important. Her tone was shifting. The confidence she had when she told me she wanted to drift was weakening. That shift was the beginning of karma. A week later, her sister texted me again. She said she had visited the house and found my envelope on the table. Apparently, it had set off several conversations. Her sister hadn't known the full story and was now upset, not at me, but at her. Word had begun to spread gently through their circle, not because I told anyone, but because people asked her questions she couldn't dodge. I stayed out of it. I didn't add fuel. I didn't correct or defend anything. I let the facts speak for themselves. Meanwhile, I took my next step, quiet but firm. We had shared a long-term lease agreement, but I was the one who had been covering most of the actual payments. I contacted the landlord, explained the situation, and arranged to remove my name when the renewal period arrived. It wasn't a punishment. It was simply me stepping away from a place that was no longer mine. When she found out, she sent another message. You really don't care about what happens to me? I read it twice, then put my phone face down. Her concern was only surfacing now that she realized what independence actually looked like. Bills, responsibilities, and the absence of someone who handled the background noise of daily life. That's often how karma works. Not with loud consequences, but with the simple return of weight someone thought they'd never have to carry. 2 days later, a mutual friend called, not to gossip, but to check on me. He told me he'd seen her with the other guy. He said the energy between them looked nothing like the version she once painted. She seems on edge, he said quietly. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. My focus was forward. That week, I sorted the last of my things. I boxed items from storage, labeled them, and stacked them neatly. I didn't rush. Each task felt like closing a chapter, not ripping pages out. On Friday evening, she sent one more message, longer than the others. I didn't expect you to actually leave. He's different from what I thought. We're not what you think. I just needed more time. The message wasn't an apology. It was a search for her old safety net. I didn't reply. A few more weeks passed, and life settled into a steady rhythm. I wasn't healed. No one bounces back that neatly, but I was stable. I woke up early, made coffee, and focused on rebuilding a routine that belonged only to me. The rental still felt temporary, yet it offered exactly what I needed: space without noise. During that time, I didn't check on her social profiles. I didn't ask mutual friends for updates. I didn't look for signs of how her new relationship was going. But sometimes information finds you even when you don't want it. One evening, my friend Mark dropped by with takeout. He set the bag on my table and said, I ran into her downtown. I didn't ask him to continue. He talked anyway. He said she looked tired. Not in a tragic way, just worn down, like someone carrying a load they didn't expect. He said she wasn't with the guy she'd drifted toward. She was alone, scrolling her phone, pacing near a parking meter. I listened, nodded, and steered the conversation toward something else. The less energy I spent on her, the better. But I knew what was happening without needing extra details. When someone expects you to stay no matter what, your absence hits harder than your anger ever could. The next step in my quiet revenge came naturally. We still had a storage unit rented under both our names, mostly filled with old furniture, holiday decorations, and boxes from years back. I paid for the unit, though she had always stored more things there. So I made a call. I transferred the unit into her name and canceled my payment method. It wasn't spite. It was responsibility returned to its rightful owner. I sent her a simple message afterwards. I transferred the storage unit to your account. You'll receive the billing notices. She replied within minutes. You're just dumping everything on me now? I didn't respond. She wasn't used to carrying her own weight, and now she had no choice. Later that week, I packed a small box of her leftover items. Nothing important, just things she had forgotten during her rushed cleanup. I mailed it to her with no note. No explanation. Just a sealed box arriving at her door like a reminder of the life she had walked away from. A few days later, her sister reached out again. She said the new guy wasn't around much anymore, and things between them had cooled off fast. I stayed neutral and didn't ask why. It wasn't my business. Then one evening, after a long day, my phone buzzed. I almost let it ring out, but the name made me pause. It was her. I answered. Her voice was flat at first. She said she was trying to figure things out, that life felt hectic, that she didn't expect things to change so fast. She kept circling the same themes without saying anything meaningful. Eventually, she said it. I miss having someone who steadied everything. Not I miss you. Just a longing for the comfort I used to provide. I realized then that my silence, my distance, my refusal to cushion her choices, that was the real consequence. Not yelling, not public scenes, just living my life without her in it. I ended the call politely and wished her well, then hung up before she could redirect the conversation. For the first time since everything began, I felt genuinely done. Not angry, just finished. About a month after that call, life had quieted in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I wasn't thinking about her every day anymore. I was working on myself, building healthier habits, meeting people who didn't drain me, and slowly getting comfortable with the idea of a future that didn't include her. Then karma arrived, without any invitation from me. It started with a message from her sister early on a Sunday morning. Just letting you know, things blew up between her and that guy. I didn't ask for details, but her sister explained anyway. Not in a dramatic way, just a calm rundown of what happened. Turns out the guy she had drifted toward had been texting someone else the whole time. Not a one-time mistake. A full-second relationship running parallel to theirs. And the part that stunned everyone. He told her she read too much into things, the exact phrase she once used on me. I sat on the edge of my bed reading that message, not smiling, not angry, just taking it in. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel pity either. It was simply the natural result of the path she chose. People often learn the value of stability only after walking away from it. A few days later, she reached out again. A short message first. Can we talk? I didn't reply. Then another. Please. I won't take long. Still, I waited. After an hour, she called. This time, I let the call connect. Her voice was different, quiet and unsure. She said she had been thinking a lot, that she now understood she had treated me like a fallback. She said she didn't realize how much I carried until she had to handle everything on her own. She talked about bills piling up, problems she couldn't manage, and friends stepping back because they didn't want to take sides. When she paused, I stayed silent. I didn't offer comfort or make it easier for her. Eventually, she said, I know I don't deserve another chance. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. It wasn't a dramatic apology. It wasn't tearful or over the top. It was plain, like someone finally seeing the whole picture for the first time. And maybe that's exactly why it hit hardest. But an apology doesn't rebuild trust. It doesn't undo months of drift. And it doesn't restore a relationship that had been sinking long before the truth came out. I told her calmly, I'm not angry anymore, but I'm not going back. She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, I didn't think I'd lose you like this. I answered honestly, you didn't lose me. You let go. We ended the call there. No promises. No plans. That was the last conversation we had. In the weeks that followed, life kept moving. I transferred to a better place, closer to friends who respected my boundaries. I picked up new routines, new hobbies, and made sure to keep my world simple and clean. Every once in a while, a mutual friend would mention they'd seen her around, not in a bitter way, just in passing. Apparently, she was quieter these days, more reserved, staying away from the circles she once drifted so freely through. Life had settled her in the exact place she worked so hard to avoid, facing the consequences she once thought she could outrun.